um, their journal. And so I didn't know whether it would be possible if I could share the link to the survey. It means that you get a free copy of the journal. So if you want to read the journal first, download the free copy and then fill in the survey about it. And then you'll go into like a prize draw for like it's a £50 Amazon voucher, but any international person, they'll convert it, to whatever Amazon voucher you want it to be. So is that okay if I post a link to that on Solarchat?
Yes. As a sponsor of the forum, they can do what they like.
Right. Okay. So I'll do that, after this meeting. So that's
good. And I read their journal this past week. I got an email from a member of the BAA, and I haven't got my title yet of Sir Stephen, but I'm looking forward to it. And I did read the journal, and it was very interesting. It was no fluff, a lot of actual scientific papers and studies. It's very interesting. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, anyone can submit, any science that they've done. So if you've done a lot of observing of the sun and you've discovered something, you can write it up and submit it. Gets peer reviewed, and then you get it published, and then it's down, like actually as a proper scientific published paper. So it's a good thing to do.
Okay. What's the gist of the survey, Alexandra? Do we know?
This one is about the journal.
Oh, okay. So it's actually about
the journal. Yeah. So there's the free copy to download. You can read it, and if you enjoy it or if you don't enjoy it, fill in the survey and see whether you like put what you do like and what you don't like, and then and chance to win like a £50 Amazon voucher.
Cool.
Didn't Nick want to ask a question? I think she had on.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, Nick. Hey, Nick.
Hi there.
Hi, Nick.
Hiya, good to see you all. Yeah, only just a very short time of the meeting. My double stack's due to come in the next couple of weeks. And I've never operated a double stack before. So I was wondering, on the solar scope, how much you need to tune it. I anticipate it being quite difficult to do the first couple of times, but then once it is tuned and I've got some sense of how it works, do you tune the wheel just a little bit? Do you need to tune it within a session? And does it change much between sessions? That was just my curiosity, really.
Alexander.
Is Solar Scope Isle of Man one?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, right. Well, I've actually got a double stack Solar Scope on the Isle of Man, so I can probably help you there actually. And as
yeah, Howard, brilliant.
I think Alexandra has as well. I'm not sure. But now funny like you actually, I've actually had a 50mm double stack for a long time, and I decided to go the next step to a 70mm. So I'm waiting for that. It'll arrive next week. So, but I would say in terms of once it's tuned, it doesn't tend to go out at all. Actually, I think I'm not really sure what actually makes it change, but I find once I've set it up, I can use it time after time after time, and it never changes. But occasionally it does change. I'm never quite sure why, but you certainly don't have to tune it every time. But the way I would tune it, the way I do it is I just start it with just the front one without the double stack, tune that, and once I'm happy with that, I then put the second one on and then tune it. It's a sort of iterative process. I mean, the main thing you'll find is I've certainly found with the 50mm is you get multiple images. So, and as you tune one, you will find multiple images sort of get further apart and get together. And generally, the closer the double images are, the better the tuning. So it's a sort of a compromise. I tune it so that you can't see the second image; it's just out of view. And that's the way you get the best view. And the other problem I find, and you will probably find, is in an ideal world, you would want to set the scope up so it's exactly you're looking along the optical axis, and that you want the best view to be looking along the optical axis. Now with mine, it's actually you've got to move it slightly off the optical axis to get the best view. So basically the first time you use it, it's quite a long, lengthy process to get the best tuning. So you got your two things to twiddle with, your two little wheels you mentioned, and you've also got the optical axis to contend. And also the other final thing is that not all, well, certainly the ones I got, the diagonals I've got, they're not perfect right angles. So if you look along, if you take the diagonal out and you look along the axis and you center it, and then you put the diagonal in, it's not quite on the center, it moves off a bit. So that is another complication. So the best way to actually tune it, I would say, is to tune it without the diagonal, if you can. Depends how high up it is. So if you tune it without the diagonal, just looking straight along, and then when you're happy with it, then put the diagonal in and see if it changes it. So you've got effectively four things. to
Those are all classic statements of tuning.
Yes, when you start off, you've got very what's the word? Patient. It'll be worth it in the end because it is.
Howard, is there any clocking that you have to do at all between the first and the second echelon?
Clocking? How do you mean?
Yes, there is.
So just rotating the modules a bit. I'm not totally familiar with the.
Yeah, that's another complication which I didn't mention.
Yeah.
Certainly I find with this, if you rotate one relative to the other, it does make a slight difference. But yeah, you can play with that, Nick. I mean, I just didn't want to make it too complicated, but yeah, I mean, pretty much anything that tilts the echelon is going to change it very slightly. But obviously, what you want, and I'm lucky, and I got a friend whose oscilloscope is not quite as good as mine. The holy grail is to get the perfect H alpha detail across the whole disc.
Hard.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that's really quite difficult to get, you know. But persistence pays. You know, you'll get there in the end, hopefully.
And Nick, if I could add to that, everything he just said is exactly the same on every Etalon solar scope made, no matter who makes it. Those adjustments are all the same. And the basis behind this whole thing is you add a second Etalon in order to get a smaller spike at 656.28. And the reason it changes is because the air pressure outside your scope changes. When the air pressure above you changes significantly, it shifts the center line of hydrogen alpha left or right from your point of view. Okay, so it's the refractive index of the line at 656.28. So the reason you tilt and the reason you put more air in the lunts and the reason you heat up and cool down the quarks is to compensate for local air pressure changing the refractive index of sunlight, which moves the spectral line left and right of center. That's the reason they have to be tilted. If that wasn't the case, there would be no need to tune any Etalon ever because they would always be centered. So if he could go into space on a satellite, you would never have to tune your Etalon. Of course, you couldn't breathe and you'd be dead, but that's the whole purpose for it. And when you add a second Etalon to the mix, you reduce the light 40%. You reduce the light getting to your eye by 40% with each Etalon you add. Okay. And hopefully most of that reduction will be in the blackness around your disc, which is a beautiful thing. When you put the second Etalon on, if everything works right, you'll end up with a perfectly black disc. I mean, outside of your disc will be perfectly black and all your features will be bright. But of course, that never actually happens. So the multiple images, as Alexandra and anybody here with double stacks will tell you, the second Etalon introduces a new set of reflections that go left and right of center. An important thing is the blocking filter, like you mentioned. The blocking filters are never perfectly centered, or the diagonals are never perfectly right angles, like you said. It's just a combination of all that. But once you get it aligned and you like the way it looks, seasonal changes will occur. And if you take it inside in an air-conditioned home, your air pressure is going to be significantly different than it is outside on a hot day. Things change. So if you have a big change in air pressure, you're going to have to retune everything, but you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly.
Okay.
I think the hardest ones.
I've been learning for 4 years. I still haven't mastered it in 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
I must admit oh, go on.
No, sorry, go on, Alexandra.
I was going to say, I must admit, when I first got my double stack, I found what I thought was the sun and spent an hour on it, trying to focus,
And it was a
trying
reflection.
to get any surface features whatsoever, and then realized it was the ghost.
I remember that.
Ah,
I remember that.
We've all done that.
Because the ghost can be quite bright.
None of us
Yeah.
have ever done that, Alexander. No one here else
Oh,
has
no.
ever done that. You're
Yeah,
the only
you're
one.
One clue that if you have got the ghost, if you start to try and turn with the wheel, the ghost moves backwards and forwards, and you're constantly chasing it. So if you're not moving your telescope and you're moving the actual Etalon tilt wheel and it's moving backwards and forwards and you're struggling, it's the ghost.
right.
Looking at the histogram is also
the other thing is, if you use it in the morning, you've got all the weight in one direction on the scope and the Ethalons, and then if you use it in the afternoon, everything's trying to flop the other way, microscopically, but enough to alter the very fine tuning on these things. So it depends on the time of day as well.
Well, yeah, because you can get it perfectly tuned in the morning.
Yeah.
The next time you come to it and you use it in the morning, you don't have to change the tilt at all. And then the next time you come to it and it happens to be an afternoon, and you think, wow, this is way off band. It's because, like what Stuart said, it's all flopped to the other side, and you end up having to retune it again.
I have a lot of fun tuning because you see things that you wouldn't see if you don't tune. Also, tuning is fun and sometimes it shows you things that aren't there on a perfectly tuned thing. There might be something a little off band. It's part of the experience, and I enjoy tuning. I enjoy it a lot, especially the relationship of the two Etalons to each other. Both of mine, like a solar scope, are externally double stacked on my lunt, and just a tenth of a turn or a quarter turn relative to each other makes a humongous difference in reflections and the position of the diagonal. If you're using a diagonal or a straight through, just turning it a little bit one way or the other can also make an enormous difference, because the blocking filters are never the same all the way across the surface. There's always some spot on that blocking filter that looks the best. So sometimes when you want to center everything, you might be in the worst spot of the blocking filter. The best spot might be off on the right somewhere. But it's all part of the experience, and I really enjoy it. And if you don't, you could just send your double stack solar scope to the United States, and I will take care of it for you.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to get haunted by a ghost and then realise how to work it after 4 years after Solar Max. So that's really helpful. Thanks.
Yes. That's all free of charge here on Solarchat, by the way. All that service.
No, I appreciate your detail, and obviously then people watching the video will benefit from it as well. So thank you, everyone, and good to meet you, Howard, as well. Thanks very much indeed.
You'll probably find, Nick, that when you get
Good
it,
luck.
because Helmut will have just tested it, it'll be all completely set and perfect. So make a note of where the Etalon wheels are.
That's right.
If you get into a mess, at least get it back to where it was when Helmut sent it to you.
Okay.
Hey, how's it going? Just make some notes on the eclipses coming up while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
All the like Nick's questions about the double stacking, because I have the same issues James was talking about. I've been at it for a couple of years, and it's still a tricky thing, but Stephen showed me one time to kind of loosen it up and turn. I remember you talking about that, turning the most external Etalon to get a image. Just don't drop it.
Right. It makes a horrible sound.
Stephen?
I've dropped a lot of them. That's called clocking, and you do it with the Etalons and also with the blocking filter. And they try to manufacture them so that the end of the threads, when you screw it into the telescope, is clocked properly. But then, of course, if you sell the Etalon or buy another Etalon for somebody else, it's not clocked properly. And if you ever look inside the Etalons, they'll have marks on the casing, and the glass will be marked, and the blocking filter will have internal markings where it was clocked properly at the factory. But the factory is at 2,500 feet MSL in Tucson, Arizona for Lunt, and somewhere in the mountains of Mexico for Coronado, although they don't exist anymore, I don't think. So it's totally different than here in Atlanta, which is 900 feet MSL, or down on the Georgia coast, which is 6 feet MSL. So the difference of 1,000 feet in elevation can make a significant difference in tuning also. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Could I ask a question about that double stacking? I've got the 80 mil Lunt THA. Is it possible? Is it? Well, I've read that it is possible, but what's the wisdom of the group for using a quark chromosphere in the back of the 80 mil as a double stack?
If it works, it works.
Okay.
They all provide the same exact return, and that is a spike at 656.28 nanometers and some smaller spikes on the edge of that. If you can get those two peaks from those two Etalons to line up at 50, where it's 50% covered, then you'll have the double stack effect no matter what piece of equipment you use. Every time you add something different, though, you introduce more sets of reflections, more tuning, etc. But it doesn't matter what kind of device you use to get that peak, as long as you get the peak.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because the double stack for the 80 mil from Lunt is quite a wait time at the moment, and I do actually have a Daystar quark chromosphere. So
there you go.
That's an experiment I want to try.
And your quark may have a ERF on the front of it, or it may be too dark. I mean, when you put it together, you may not be getting enough light, because if the Etalon is designed to work on its own, it's probably darker than an Etalon that is designed to be a double stack. So you may or may not have enough light. But the only way to find out is to look and see.
Because you will have two ERFs, won't you?
Yeah, I was thinking Claire and Peter had a setup like that with a quark and a 40 millimeter.
Yeah.
It will also be complicated by the fact that the quark has a built-in 4.2 telecentric lens. So your effective focal length will quadruple. And whether your brightness and or seeing will support that is something you'll have to determine. You can try it by getting yourself a 4-time telecentric or Teleview Barlow lens, and see what that effective focal length is like where you live and under your seeing conditions.
Thanks. I use the 5 times PowerMate already so I'm at f/35, and that the seeing here from my balcony over the water can be quite good early in the morning.
With my 60 mil Lunt and the quark, you take the blocking filter out of the Lunt, of course. I had to put in something like 200 millimeter extension at the back of the Lunt to get focus on the quark. So you might have to put a fair extension piece on the back of the Lunt to get focus.
Well, Pete, I would just give it a crack, man.
Thanks for help. Can I just that 200 mil extension? The 200 mil extension. Where did you find something? I just haven't been able to find anything quite that long.
In my garage with the What I did, I got multiple extensions, measured the distance, ordered a bit of aluminium tubing, and drilled it out, and then took it out with the boring tool.
You see that, Peter?
I made it myself, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was looking
okay
while we was talking. I can't put my hand on it at the moment. Yeah.
So Bintel extensions. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Donald with that, or Earl.
How long are they, Ralph? How big are those two?
There's two there on this one. That's about 200 mils there.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can buy them in multiples. You can have it as long as you like.
Yep.
I use that on Lunt 100. I don't need it on the Vixen because of the length, but I do on the Lunt 100.
Okay, thank you.
Is it still a bit of a lottery with quarks, or in terms of quality, or have they improved things over? No. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
If you buy one from the 365 astronomy in the UK, you're okay, but individually tested.
Right.
Yeah, we heard that.
I'm very, very happy with mine. So, but yeah, don't know. Tricky.
Well, I hadn't thought of that, but I hadn't gone any further. But now that you mentioned that and the other snippets of conversation, that might be a good road to go down, perhaps, particularly with the 100.
When I went to the Sol Phoenix presentation that Kevin Lagore put on last year, Lunt was there, Daystar was there, a lot of purveyors were there with their various equipment. So I assume I would be looking through the best of the best that those companies had to offer. And that was pretty true with Lunt. I got some pretty good views. The views through the Daystars being single stack filters, they're always going to not be as good as any double stack filter almost you'd ever look through. And the particular quark I looked through seemed to be about a 0.7 or so angstrom bandpass. So it was very bright, not a lot of disk detail, but good uniformity and good prominences. So that was probably one of the best quarks I've looked through. But from everything you see posted online, there's quite a bit of contrast variation across the etalon generally. And a lot of people think that they can just do a flat or something to even out the brightness difference, but that does not take care of the fact that there's also a change in the band pass across the filter from that non-uniformity. So it's $1,200 and whatever dollars. It's an entry-level filter. You can't expect it to perform what a $3,000 or $4,000 etalon would produce. So some people get really lucky and get a really fantastic one, but from what I've seen, most people get mediocre performance out of a quark.
Yeah, the flat fielding to solve the problems is Daystar's answer to everybody's picture they send in of non-uniform fields. You go, oh, a flat field it. Well, yeah, then you have a flat non-uniform image. Is what it is.
Regarding sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Ernie.
Oh, just a short comment regarding extensions. I've bought quite a few extensions from Agena Astro, Blue Fireball. I just put a link to that in the chat. So if anyone is looking for different lengths of extensions.
Thank you.
I like the threaded extensions because invariably when you have a bunch of them thumb screwed together, you'll miss the thumb screw, and it's awfully expensive stuff to have slip and land at your feet.
Very true.
I think James asked a question. as well.
Built in there as well, some extra tilt with the thumb screws as well.
James, I think you asked a question as well. I'm here on the chat.
Right.
So hey, if you guys don't,
I'm gonna have to say goodbye. I'll catch you later.
If you guys don't mind, I was gonna tell you about where the fundraiser went and where your money went. And I appreciate everybody here for supporting our nonprofit. If you're on Facebook, you know this already, but we found a guy up in New England named Claudio Stabil, who's a 18-year-old getting his Eagle Scout badge, which is a big deal here in the States. It's a youth group that learns about the outdoors and community service and things like that. And he is constructing an observatory for his town to donate to his town. And he wants to stock it with telescopes. And he's very interested in solar astronomy. He's been doing outreach, etc. So he sent me a video of what he was doing. And his dad he's just a real nice guy. So we did pass our goal on this past fundraiser. The forum's all paid for at least 3 years. So that's good. Unless something happens to it. But I wanted to give him a nice solar scope. But since Meade, like I say, they don't exist anymore. And Lunt doesn't sponsor us anymore. So I just gave him my own. I gave him a double stack Solar Max 3 90 millimeter that I was using, and a Celestron AVX mount. So that was, $12,000 worth of stuff. And I sent him a large cash donation from your donations, and I appreciate you, to help him build his observatory. And we sent him 3,000 pair of solar glasses to do his solar astronomy outreach. And I think it was a worthy thing to do. And none of that would happen without you guys supporting us. And we also have a Lunt LS 152 double stack. That was also my own personal scope. And I'm going to give that to the government of Kosovo. Well, not the government of Kosovo, the Astronomy Outreach of Kosovo, whose founder, Pranvera, is one of our sponsorees, Pranvera Hasini. And she and I met with the Minister of Education a couple times when I was there and got them on board to build Kosovo's only observatory for public use. And we're going to stock that with my personal telescopes and mounts, and your money, our money, to pay for solar glasses and transportation of the telescope there. That's another place where you have to bribe people to get equipment into the country. If I ship the telescope to Kosovo, it'll never make it to Kosovo because the countries around Kosovo don't acknowledge their existence because it's, all that stupid political nonsense. So if you send it there, it goes through Belgrade, which is in Serbia, and Serbia and Kosovo were at war with each other recently. So Serbia will not allow any shipments into Kosovo because they don't believe Kosovo exists. So you have to bribe someone to take it there and go through customs, and then you have to bribe customs to get stuff through there, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to trust a $12,000 telescope to that. I'm just going to fly there with it myself, which I've done once before. And the thing about all these politically corrupt borders is all the people working the borders are also corrupt. So if you flash $100 bill US to any of these guys, they'll give you a pedicure and a back rub. So it's fairly simple to bribe your way through, but it's impossible to ship something to them. So anyway, that's where the money from this fundraiser went, and to pay the administrative costs of running the nonprofit. So I'm real grateful to all you guys for that. And we did meet our goal. And our next fundraiser will probably be April of next year. And I'll have shipped out all of our solar glasses for the 2 eclipses in North America by then. I've got requests all over the place for them. We've already shipped out about 40,000 pair. And I've got about 60,000 pair left in the garage. And maybe Rainbow Symphony will send some more, maybe not. I get a greatly reduced rate from them, but it still does cost money. So that's where your money went. And I appreciate that from all of you guys. Anybody have any questions about the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project or any of that stuff?
Just a quick comment, Steve, and a question, I guess. But in 2017, when we had the eclipse in the US, there was a big debacle around the use of solar glasses.
Yes, there
and
was.
Kids who could have observed were told not to.
Correct.
I mean, that was a great wasted opportunity. What's happening this time around? Is it going to be some sort of information?
In 2017, we had a different climate in the country than we do now. It's still not good, but it was way worse then. And schools that I'd been going to for 10 years, even in the Southeast US, that I'd personally been going to every year for a decade, suddenly we're no longer allowed to look at the sun or use the glasses because of the Amazon fake solar glasses scare. And first off, even if the glasses are fake, you can't look at the sun long enough through a fake pair of glasses to hurt yourself. It was really, really way overblown, but it got in the media. And then all of a sudden, every school that I'd been going to for a decade, no longer would allow any viewing of the sun. But before that happened, we'd already sent out 311 imaging setups, computers, sunglass kits to schools all over the US, and already had an arrangement to do a gigantic eclipse event in Northeast Georgia, all of which were canceled last minute because this all happened about 2 months before the eclipse. So the effect of that was schools, you were no longer welcome to do solar astronomy in any school because of litigation risks from parents. And that's still the case. The insurance to do said events in schools quadrupled from $3,500 a year to almost $20,000 a year for insurance, which is, more than I could possibly afford. So it ceased operations in schools for our nonprofit. The other 26 countries had no effect on them. They're still doing it strong. But that changed us from going to schools to doing public parks and public events rather than in-school events, which was a huge, huge, huge change in my life. This time around, man, I really hope it doesn't happen again. But if there's one thing you can count on, it's the stupidity of the American public. And especially if the news media guides them to say this is dangerous, then people in this country love to bitch. They love to complain.
Bunch of uninformed puppets.
Right. So I don't know. I hope that's not the case. I sent out 200,000 pairs of solar glasses for the 2017 eclipse, and I think maybe 100 of them got used. The rest of them were just discarded, and as were the computers and imaging gear. They didn't even bother to send them back. They just, dumped them. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm not going to be sending out computers, telescopes, and imaging gear for these eclipses. I'm only going to give away free glasses and send glasses to anybody who wants them under the strict stipulation that they are not sold. They must be given away freely. So that's my plan.
Okay.
Boy, this meeting is really a bummer.
No, I don't. Hey, is Alexandra still there?
Yeah, she's there.
Yeah, she's there. She is.
What do you think about this? All of this with the filaments and stuff, and the detail on the sun, and everybody trying to figure out what it is, and all of the drama. What did you think about that?
Well, I only saw the drama actually on Solarchat. I haven't been looking on Cloudy Nights or anything
Cloudy
like that.
Nights was worse.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't bother with that sort of thing because, it's just ridiculous, really. At least on Solarchat, we can have, like an educated and rational, discussion about it. And, if anybody sees anything on the sun, then they've seen it. There must be something there. Yes. You can get that effect, like we always see, different shapes and things like that on the sun, and you can sort of like your eye, it's like in clouds, you can see, like pictures and things in clouds. And so sometimes the granulation sort of like forms different features where you see dark bands because they just happen to be lining up. Now, they might be happening to be lining up for a reason, or it could be just the chaos theory, and it could be by chance, that they align. But you've got to remember also that the sun is like one giant ball of, plasma. It has no like surfaces. So any feature could be from all the way out, all the way in. And what you're seeing is almost like the roots of a tree. You're seeing things going down to different layers, different regions, and you'll see them in slightly different ways and slightly different angles. So you've got to remember that what you're seeing, like in the photosphere, you could be seeing like the roots of, you know, like a filament that's come all the way down, and it must have anchor points because it's all magnetic and it's all like plasma. So all of these magnetic points must come down into the, you know, the photosphere and in, you know, into more into, you know, like the convection zone, you know, of the sun. So you might be seeing these features and that different thing, and different wavelengths are going to let you see different things. Gosh, you only have to look in white light through different colored filters and you're seeing different features. You know, I was just looking up, you know, like the Rattan, I can't remember, the red, was it the 25 is the red or something? And like the granulation was really sort of like smooth and rounded, and there wasn't much contrast. You couldn't see much of the faculae or anything like that. Go down to the green and suddenly you can see more angular granulation features, and you could see the faculae much better and much clearer. Go down to the G band at 430 and suddenly there was even more contrast, and you could see much more dark lines and dark intergranular lanes, and the you know, the faculae was much more detailed. So even just in white light, you know, just by looking at different parts of the spectrum, you're seeing different sort of like features in there. So I wouldn't rule out anything. If you see something, you see something. Nobody can tell you that it's wrong or right. This is the beauty of this forum, is that we've got people all around the world. If everybody's looking out for these different features and can post them and say, I've seen this, I've seen that, then we can build up a good picture. And this is exactly what I was going to do for this prominence and filament project, was, you know, to have, you know, unknown things. And the more people that report them and the more people that show them, then the more data that we get and build it up. Swear that I saw one of these dark filaments in white light on Saturday on the disc, but getting it to pull out onto actually you know, a picture I find quite hard, but I could definitely see it visually. So something in this, because my eye was immediately attracted to it. It was like, I wonder if that'll come out.
I've seen that too.
On that.
If I have one more person publish their first solar image and call it a coronal mass ejection, that's the thing that itches me, man. Every person that starts doing it, they put that beautiful photo up, and that prominence is a coronal mass ejection
or a flare.
Coronal mass ejection. Coronal mass
prominence is a flare.
Yeah, it's a solar flare. It's a CME. And I just, you know, I have to keep my mouth shut because I don't. Yeah.
Mark put a picture up a little while back. It was a past post that showed two spots with a little line arc between them. And that was one of the most convincing ones I've seen, that it may actually be a feature of some type.
Yeah, yeah.
It was in sodium.
Light bridge.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt. First of all, seeing something on a single image taken by one person doesn't mean anything. True. It could be a stacking artifact. It could be a number of things. And that's why I propose that Solarchat, or Alexandra, if you want to bump this to the BAA, you need simultaneous observations and recordings by two different people and identify if this feature is visible or recorded by two individuals in the same place at the same time. Even Christian said, you know, you're going to have to do it, you know, at a 30-second cadence and multiple images if it's a highly transitory thing. But until you actually do that and have some valid and reliable data, we're chasing our tails. And then when you get into Apollo Lasky's theories that these are iron phenomena.
I couldn't care less what Apollo Lasky has to say.
I knew what Stephen had said.
Because the sun is mostly iron, because he sees mostly iron absorption lines in the photosphere and mostly iron emission lines in the chromosphere indicates a very significant lack of understanding of the physics of the sun. So getting rid of all of that stuff and just saying there's something here, we need to find out what it is, and doing a concrete study by more than one person at a time to see if these can be visualized. And then you have some data that you can go to the more professional community and say, we're seeing these in different locations at the same time, one in Europe and one on the other side of the Atlantic here in the USA, and they appear to be identical. You can then start getting some credibility to say, we need to look at this. Other than that, if you just start spewing this stuff out and they look at it and they say, whoa, this is kind of silly, you don't get
no, actually, quickly go back to a question I had earlier. I can't remember who it was that asked about effectively mix and match different brands of solar of Etalon. I've actually done it myself and got very good results. I don't know if any of you remember the original Coronado Helios, which was a
I do.
Refractor with a built-in Etalon sort of halfway down. So what I've done is I've double stacked that with my 70mm solar scope Etalon. So when I said earlier I'm getting a double stack solar scope, that's I've already got the 70mm. So what Ken Huggett, well, not Ken Huggett, the new guy,
Helmut.
What Helmut has done is made me a second 70mm, which will obviously not have the blocking filter. So up to now, I've just been so double stacking 70mm on the front of the Helios, and I get really nice results for imaging. Not so good for visual because he's a bit dark. So I use my 50mm double stack for visual, and I use the Helios stroke solar scope for imaging full disc. This is full disc. Really good results.
Did you know that there's a? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that comes on to my question actually. So when I get my my second 70mm Etalon next week, that will obviously not have the blocking filter at the front, or it won't have the blocking filter because obviously you don't need two. So the question you guys might be able to tell me is, so at the moment with the Helios and the 70mm, I've effectively got two blocking filters because obviously there's a blocking filter on the front of the solar scope, and there's also a blocking filter. So not a big one, not blocking filter.
No. ERF.
ERF. An ERF. I've got two ERFs. So there's one on the front of the solar scope, and there's one on the front of the Helios. So I've got two together. Now, that probably dims things. Now, so the question is this: when I get my new 70mm, that won't have the blocking, won't have the ERF on it. So in theory, I could put that in front of the Helios. So I'm just wondering if there's any risks doing that, because I mean, I've still got a block, I've still got an ERF, but it's just halfway down the scope on the Helios. Does anybody think that there could be a problem there?
Yes, your second Etalon won't have anything to protect it physically. It will just be an Etalon sitting in the Etalon basket and cell. So my recommendation, A, is that you at a minimum use some kind of clear or UV-IR blocking filter. You could use Bader, it's not the Astro Solar filter material, but it's the same substrate that's clear. They call it turbo film, at a minimum, to protect dust and stuff from getting on the Etalon. I would always just use the 70 with the front ERF on your Helios, just because it also will have an infrared blocking on the ERF.
Helios will always have it. It's what I'm suggesting is the
I know that
the solar scope on the front won't have it potentially.
Your Etalon
always have it because I won't take it off the Helios.
Your Etalon is also susceptible to heating, and especially because they don't, the solar scope Etalons don't have a central spacer to maintain the Etalon gap. So without an ERF that controls IR, you can get some thermal instability. Alexandra and I know about this very well from our SF, DSF 100 systems. May not be as bad with a 70 though. I have never used a 70, but it does actually affect the uniformity of the Etalon gap until it thermally stabilizes.
Yeah.
So if there was a way to get a 75 millimeter clear glass BK7, maybe for that use, I'd go with a Bader or Botter 75 millimeter DERF on the front of that double stacking Etalon, just to cover that situation.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thanks for that. Yeah.
Why is it that you want to use one of the Etalons with the Helios? Why not just use the double stack 70? Why do you need to double stack on the Helios? Why not just stick with your two solar scopes?
That's a very good question.
Indeed.
Well, it may well be when I double stack that the images I get are. But all I can say is I've tried imaging with the double stack 50, and I've always been a bit disappointed. You know, the double stack, the results I get with the double stacking of the Helios and the 70mm solar scope are much better than the double stack 50. So I mean, I'm trying to extrapolate, thinking that, you know, that there's such a big difference in the results I'm getting. I can't imagine the 70mm double stack would be as good as the Helios double stack. I don't know. It may be good.
I don't know.
It would be a lot better.
Well, obviously,
your internal Etalon is in a collimating lens system, and that introduces field angles which reduce your sweet spot. And I know from personal experience with the Helios that Etalon isn't anywhere near as good as probably the solar scope Etalon. It's probably 0.8 angstroms. So while it looks great double stack, because double stacking makes everything look good, your double stack 70 will blow it away. So get yourself a good blocking filter and put that on a good, you know, 70mm, 80mm, 100mm objective scope. And I think you'll see a vast improvement.
Yep. You know, they have a 70mm Helios at the Visitor Center to Mauna Kea, still in use for visitors. So a little bit of trivia there. Yeah, it looks like shit, but it works great.
Yeah, but Bob, you're right. Is it Bob or Rob? You're right. The Helios, I'm guessing it's about 0.8 angstroms. So the Helios on its own, visually, is not that great, to be honest. But it's just that the combination of that with the 70mm obviously reduces the band paths down to the sort of the perfect figure, and I get really nice disc detail with that together. But even the solar scope on its own, the 70mm solar scope on its own I'm not super impressed, which is, I guess that's why everybody goes double stack. You know, the double stack experience is just so much better. So we'll see. I mean, I hope Alexandra's right. You know, because if the 70mm double stack is really good, I'll be able to sell my Helios. I know I would never sell it. Actually, I'm too attached to it.
All right, very good. We have reached our hour. Thank you. Oh, you had something? What's up? Yeah. Hugh, go ahead. You had.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I'm very new to all this. I've been on the chat for a few months now, but listening to you people with the knowledge that you've got, it's really good. It's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. That's very kind of you to say. And the majority of it's true. Only some of it is BS that we make up. So we'll do this again the second Sunday of next month at 1800 GMT.
UTC.
GMT. Okay, which hopefully will be 2 p.m. Eastern time. And it really means a lot for you guys to
universal time.
Okay, to be so awesome. I appreciate everybody here more than you know. And adios from Solarchat.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Bye.